So, Mark, I want to ask you a little bit about how contracts are set up, right? So let's jump into establishment of contracts for large projects, and the handover process between small packages. What does
Sure.
that actually mean? Like, what are the challenges that come along with that?
Look, that's an important question, Andy, because it's an area that we often don't get right in the construction industry. So the first question you have to ask yourself when you're taking on a big project is, am I going to break this into bits and give little bits to people, or am I going to give the whole thing to somebody else and let them figure it out?
Yep.
Now,
Even if you give the whole thing to somebody else, they're going to break it up into bits.
that's
aren't
what
they?
has to happen next, right?
Yes.
And even on a small project, if you're building a house, you need a
Yeah.
plumber and an electrician to work in there, and you've got to coordinate that work too. So the first question is, why am I breaking it up into bits? And it may be because you need different skill sets to do different bits of the job.
Yep.
That's one of the main reasons why we'd break things up. If you're going to break a big job up, the very first thing you have to ask yourself is, who is going to be responsible for putting it all back together at the end and making it work? So that person is often referred to as the integrator, and they're responsible for making the thing work at the end. So if you're building an airport, someone might build the runway, someone else will put in the lighting system, which is very complex to get the planes going in the right directions. Someone else will put the terminal building in, and then the ventilation's got to go in, and all the passenger systems and the baggage handling. So they'll all often be done by separate providers.
Absolutely.
And so putting that back together becomes very, very important. So in thinking about how you break the job up, you have to sort of make sure that everybody understands what they're doing. And that is the critical piece of this. And it sounds simple, everyone needs to know what they're doing, but the points that it gets complicated are at the interfaces. So where the two contracts touch up against each other. So first of all, have you contracted the right package of work? And has it been coordinated with the other people that are doing bits of work? And usually the person doing that, so the end owner, doesn't know the detail of those interfaces, because that's not what they do for a job. That's what the people they're contracting to do. And is the budget right? Is the schedule right? Is the sequencing right? I've worked on a job where a crane turned up to do a lift, and it was going to be set up on a bridge, and there were pictures of it being set up on a bridge embankment. It was all ready to go. The crane turned up and the embankment hadn't been built yet.
Oh, wow.
So
somebody forgot to build the embankment?
they didn't forget. They were just going to do it later in
right.
their schedule. Nobody had told them that the crane was... So that coordination is really, really critical.
So let's just talk about that one example for
Sure.
a little bit and dig into it a little bit more.
Sure.
So the crane was meant to be sitting on a bridge.
It was sitting on an embankment to a bridge.
On an embankment to a bridge. Okay, cool.
The bridge itself was being constructed by one party because
Yep.
it had a span that was complex to put in place, and
Cool.
it had to be lifted over some other infrastructure that was already there, and it was very important it didn't fall down on it.
Yep.
And as the landscaping contractor, if you like, or the heavy earthworks contractor, they had a sequence of events that they were putting things together with. They had to stay out of the way of the bridge supports being built, so they were doing that.
Okay.
And they were right out of the way, in fact. And they said, well, we'll come along at the very end and we'll put that embankment in place.
But somebody would have done a site walk at that point.
Of course they did.
And they didn't see a bridge
two guys-
embankment not being built?
Well, the site work was before the construction had started, right?
Yeah, right.
So when you get into the thick of it, the engineers aren't on site every day.
Yeah, true.
It's long periods of time to do this work.
But because those contracts didn't really work together, somebody actually thought assumed the bridge was built.
That's
the
it.
bridge embankment was
Yep.
built.
Yep.
That they could place a crane on.
Yep, and it wasn't. It wasn't.
Interesting.
So that's one of the things
this
that
is
goes
the
wrong.
fundamental problem of just working behind a desk and not on site, isn't it?
It can be, but it's also a problem that we're hoping to solve now with digital twins, where you can actually sequence the job and step it through with everybody in the room looking at the same screen and saying, yep, we're doing that, then we're doing that, then this happens. If that had been done on this job, they would have noticed.
You know, that is part of my innovation that I'm kind of focusing heavily on is 4D digital twins. You call it digital twins. It's just development of 4D models.
It's really just a model that you can take through, whether you build it
simulation
in
of a model.
cyberspace or whether you build it with matchsticks on a table.
Oh, 100%. So I have a vision for the construction industry. It's called TikTok for construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll hear more about that another time.
Yeah, it's really simple though. I just want to break down small videos or sequences of events to communicate to the people on site that, rather than doom scrolling TikTok, you doom scroll your construction methodology.
And doom scroll the sequence.
Yeah, your entire sequence in short, bite-sized chunks of information.
That's fantastic. So you've got access to what you need when you need it. Because with a lot of those big jobs, the whole sequence is, from beginning to end, is a long thing, and you can't assimilate all of that at once. So being able to get it in bite-sized chunks when you need it's a great idea.
Absolutely. Sorry, we're getting off topic here. Let's step back to contracts and the key challenges there.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, different contracts working together and interfaces between the two, and the challenges faced at integration, as you call it.
Yeah, sure. So one great way of doing that, a simple method that if you apply it tends to work, is the owner, if you like, breaks into bits the contract, and they have interface specifications at the interface. So they tell people, they give them an interface requirement specification, if you like. That tells the people on each side of the interface what they've got to do. Those people then each write an interface control document that they send back to the principal after discussing it between themselves to work out the detail, because they're the experts in the detail.
So for an example, that would be between piling and your substructure works.
For instance, the piles have got to be in the right spot at the right height at the right time to the right quality and able to take the right loads at the right times. So they'll work that out with the substructure guy who wants to come in and put his formwork on and dig his holes and use excavators and have somewhere for the excavator to sit while it's digging and coordinate that. Now, the principal doesn't know that detail, so they can't write that.
They don't need to know that detail.
No, they don't. They can't write that in their interface requirement spec. But they do have to write something a little bit more technical that says, you two guys will work together to give me the structure in place with the right piles.
Have you worked on a job where an interface, what do you call it? An interface?
Interface requirement specification, yep.
Interface requirement specification was written for handover of every small package to the next?
Absolutely. So
Yes, you have?
Yes, in large complex jobs like railways, where you're building a railway or an airport, or big substations where you've got multiple parties working in, you must have those specifications. And the time when things go wrong is when the specifications aren't right, when they're not clear, and when you don't get the reflection of what you think you want from the experts who actually know what they're going to do.
Yeah, right. There you go. So, interface specification requirements.
Yep.
That actually seems like a really good idea, Mark.
And that's only half the picture though, Andy.
Yeah,
the other half of the picture is to get the experts to reflect it to you in their own interface control documents. So they write them and all of those things get bound into the contract.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some food for thought right there.